And can it be Friday already? That music indicates it certainly can. As we welcome back to the show and the microphone now, pal Van Connor, of course, Mr. Movies. When it comes to Freeview film recommendations, you could call him out Van Friday. See what I did there with a nod of the hat to Daniel Defoe. Let's say good morning to Van Connor. And Van, it seems we're going to mention once again possibly our most recommended and nominated Freeview film ever since we started doing this 4 or 5 years ago. If I don't recommend this film, it seems you do, from 1985. Tell us what you've picked to kickstart our weekends. It's a cracker, this one.
Well, I've picked 1985's Commando, and as you point out, we pick this a lot. And the reason we do, I think historically, is obviously it's not the first, but it kind of arguably is the movie that really shaped the 80s action genre into what we today remember it being. It's this kicked off an industry-shaping, run of franchises and movie stars that built up to Terminator 2, which is like my favourite movie ever in 1991. The same way that Avengers Endgame did for the superhero, genre a couple of years ago. So, as we both know, some people may not, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Arnie, is John Matrix. He is a commando. Now, one of his former squad is bumping off the rest of the squad, and he's kidnapped his daughter to blackmail him into committing an assassination on the fictional island of Valverde, which pops up a lot in movies written by Steven D'Souza. But Arnie then, instead of going along with the plan, has plans of his own, namely involving the highest body count any rescue mission has ever seen. So you can see this on Great Movies tonight at 9 p.m. It's a banger. It's such a banger, it doesn't even need a full-length clip.
And can I just say,
so I'm going to leave you with one of the great ones.
Can I just cut in, Van, and say, I think I've said this before. When my son James and I saw this film, he was probably way too young. He's 14. We probably watched it when he was maybe 10 or 11. It's close to enough. And we tried on repeat reviews to count the number of people that Arnold Schwarzenegger is meant to kill in this film. I think we once got to 90 odd and gave up. And I think it's even more, it might even be triple figures. There's one scene in particular when he's locked in a shed and he comes out using his kind of MacGyver type skills and takes the top of somebody's head off with the blade from one of those chainsaw things, one of those kind of buzzsaws. It's an astonishingly violent film, but also very funny film. He even gets in a gag about the boy George, and his daughter likes boy George. Huh, you mean girl George? Very much of his time, but an absolute cracker, this film. You've got a clip for us, you were saying.
I've got a clip for it. It's one of the all-time moments. This is the movie that crystallized the action genre as we remember it. So I'm going to let Arnie just memorialize this for us in his own special way.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
Is that the chap who was driving the yellow Porsche that's damaged and then undamaged in the very next shot when Arnie drives it away? Is that sequence from the film?
The magically healing yellow Porsche. It is, in fact, yes, the driver of the magically healing yellow Porsche.
Okay, so we go from an absolute action cracker of 1985 to another film from 1985, which I think disappointed at the box office, but introduced us to a number of huge stars, including Kevin Costner. It's his very first, that I remember, big screen outing. I think he was meant to be in The Big Chill, and he was meant to be the friend there all morning, and they lost all the flashbacks from that. This is a great film. Kevin Kline's in it, Jeff Goldblum, John Cleese, and I think his only Western appearance. So it's by Lawrence Kasdan. A great film called Silverado. Very much a kind of, Danny Glover's in it as well, very much a kind of, sort of, misfits coming together, trying to do the right thing, even though they don't particularly have any great kind of personal interest in being moral rectitude sheriffs. They turn into that. Also got a great turn from Linda Hunt, of course, who went on to win the Oscar for The Year of Living Dangerously. And if memory serves, Brian Dennehy's in this as well. Brian Dennehy's in this as well, isn't he? A brilliant actor who plays the kind of bad villain or good bad guy type sheriff character in this. Great action film, great Western film, this. And it's a kind of, it was almost, I think, 5 years too early. Had it come 5 years later, I think it would have gone gangbusters at the box office when America was ready for a bit more kind of gung-ho Western stuff. This is almost, I think, slightly ahead of the game, I think, this one, band Silverado.
Oh, absolutely. But this is the movie, I think, that really crystallized Kevin Costner as, the up-and-coming, the leading man to watch, definitely.
Okay, I've got the trailer for this one. It gives you a kind of breakdown of just some of the cast. It's an amazing ensemble movie. You can catch it at 1 o'clock this afternoon on Great
hunt.
Here's the good stuff.
May it last a long time.
It lasts quite a long time. It's a great old film. At 1 o'clock this afternoon, great action cinema. I love the way they call him John Cleese. Introduced him to the American audiences, of course. Rather fun. And you've chosen a very good film indeed for your second recommendation. It's The Staith. It's The Meg. Tell us more about it, Connor.
Yeah, weird one about this is we all tend to forget this is actually an adaptation of like a best-selling 1997 novel by, I think it's Steve Alton. And the novel's full title is Meg, a novel of deep terror. But we can just call it what it is, which is Jason Statham literally fights a giant shark. It's goofy popcorn fodder with a fun supporting cast that consists of, I think, Bing Bing Lee, Ruby Rose is in there, Rainn Wilson as well, people like that. But of course, the true joy is, the Staith, who, if any actor ever knew and had complete mastery over their niche audience and appeal, it's probably Jason Statham. He doesn't disappoint here. The guy literally just at one point unstraps and fights a giant shark. I love it. There is actually a sequel to this called Meg 2, The Trench, which is coming out next August. It's going to be directed by, of all the people in the universe, the director of Kill List and High Rise, Ben Wheatley. So yeah, it's an aquatic research squad face off against a giant prehistoric shark. So I'm going to let you sink your teeth into that tomorrow night on 5 Star at 9 p.m. I've got a clip from the trailer myself, so just enjoy the lantern-jawed idiocy and fun that is The Meg.
A weekend belter. Here we go. She's coming.
Oh, boy.
It was the largest shark that ever existed.
Thought to have been extinct for 2 million years.
That thing's out there. We need to find it and kill it.
Why don't you just put a tracker on it? Did you guys ever watch Shark Week?
Great film, that is, I must say. I really enjoyed that. The trailer's fantastic. It doesn't begin to do justice what is a true Jason Statham roller coaster, underwater roller coaster, admittedly. Great film. And I've gone to 1991 for my next recommendation, which is on Film 4. It's a kind of midlife crisis movie featuring one of the greatest bad guys ever seen in a Western, Jack Palance, who plays a sort of bad good guy. It's about Billy Crystal, whose life has taken a kind of downward turn. He's not happy in his job, and he's kind of thinking, is this all life's got? It's all right, but is this all life's got? He decides to go on a kind of what they call a City Slickers Dude Ranch adventure fortnight. There's more adventure and there's less dude than he expects. Very funny film. It's slapstick, but very predictable at times. I mean, it's very kind of harbinger of what was to come in the 90s when I think comedies like this got more and more formulaic and actually less and less funny. But this one is very funny. Much better than the sequel, which is The Legend of Curly's Gold or some nonsense. But This is City Slickers. It's on Film 4 tomorrow afternoon at 20 to 5. And genius. This film would not have worked, I don't think, without Jack Palance agreeing to play the kind of main cowboy guy, because he's just perfect for this film. He's got one of those great, say he's got a lived-in face. It's a bit like saying that East Anglia's flat.
Definitely. Jack Palance in this, he absolutely makes it. And I agree that the sequel, I think the sequel has Jack Palance turn up as the brother, doesn't it? That's
right. But even so, it's that little kind of thing you think, well, there's a, spoiler alert, there's a reason why the brother has to turn up, not Jack Palance. But if that way, it's kind of, okay, it will over milk it. I mean, I think I saw Billy Crystal interview once and he said that him and Meg Ryan turned down a bucket load of money to do a, When Harry Met Sally spin-off. He should really have turned down the money, I think, for the sequel to this one, because, while I was all, everyone's got to earn a living, this one is absolutely perfect film of its kind. It's on at 20 to 5 tomorrow afternoon on Film 4. Here we go. Saddle up, it's City Slickers.
Happy birthday.
For Mitch Robbins, turning 39 wasn't the end of the world. It just felt like it.
I'm losing hair where I want hair, and I'm getting hair where there shouldn't be hair. I found 4 big fat ones on my back. I'm starting to look like the Fly.
He couldn't put his finger on what was missing.
Show him the brochure. It's fantastic.
But his friends could.
2 weeks, the 3 of us. Driving cattle.
What, like in a truck?
No, it's a real old-fashioned cattle drive.
Go away with Ed. Take Phil. Go and find your smile.
Welcome to the Stone Ranch. Believe it or not, that work you saw a while ago, y'all are going to be doing that the next 2 weeks.
My ass hurts just watching this.
What do you think?
I think you look like one of the village people.
He does what I want of these people, and guess what? Not the construction worker. So that's my second recommendation. Here goes my third one. Unusually, I've gone for Sky Arts on this one. I say unusually because although it's a Freeview channel, they tend to do more documentaries. Now, on Sunday night, they're starting the first of a 3-parter about my favourite kind of slice of 40s and 50s Hollywood film noir. I've not seen the documentary series. It looks pretty good, so it's worth kind of sticking in record for that, folks, if you like your black and white movies in particular. It's followed by the second time Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake got together. It's a great film, this. A really intense, full-on thriller. And what happened after the Second World War, I think, was there was a kind of feeling that, okay, America had fought in the Second World War for all the right reasons. What kind of land were people coming home to? It was often a country where they felt that kind of gangsters and crooks had been allowed to get their feet under the table. And it took some of the heroes and some of the dedication and the moral purpose of the Second World War to put things right. Only those heroes were kind of fragile and frail and human beings too. So you've got a lot of moral ambiguity in it. And it certainly turns up in this way. It's called The Glass Key. Alan Ladd gets fourth billing in this one, although he was or third billing, I think, although he's basically the star. Because the first time he was with Veronica Lake in a great film called Fear is the Key, he got seventh billing, and the public just loved Alan Ladd at this time. Again, he represented that kind of slightly dead behind the eyes, psychopathic, I've seen too much stuff, but I'll do the job that's necessary in front of me. He's also got Brian Dunleavy, not to be confused with Brian Dennehy, he was in Silverado, who's a great kind of almost leading man. William Bendix is in this as well, that guy with the great lived-in, beaten-up face, who plays, again, he looks like the kind of guy who's kind of come back from the war with PTSD, based on a Dashiell Hammett novel, who goes to the Maltese Falcon, and it was adapted by, I don't know if you know this, by a guy called Jonathan Latimer, who'd been a crime reporter in Chicago after university, and I think he was the last person to interview Al Capone just before he was arrested. He also interviewed Bugsy Siegel a number of times, so he really knew what he was writing about. The dialogue of this is crisp and great. It's a fantastic kind of black and white example of film noir. Follows a documentary on Sky. It's about that particular genre. 9 o'clock Sunday night, The Glass Key. Are you a fan of film noir, Van? You must be. I'm sure you are.
I am a film noir fan, but I wasn't familiar with this outside of having seen the Alan Ladd documentary that came out last year. So most of my knowledge of The Glass Key literally comes from that documentary.
It's well worth a look, this, folks. I mean, it's also interesting. I know he gets a lot of stick, Alan Ladd, for being not the tallest man in the world. Far from it. In fact, although rumours, I think, that he leading those men to stay in a trench were kind of probably over-exaggerated. But he's perfect with Veronica Lake because she was also only 5'0". Gorgeous looking, snappy dialogue, this one. And here's the trailer. It's The Glass Key. It's 9 o'clock Sunday night. It's on Freeview on Sky Arts. Enjoy.
Paramount's fast-moving story of two tough guys and a beautiful girl who gives them the fight of their lives. It's a battle of the sexes, starring Brian Donlevy, the great McGinty, back in politics and tougher than ever. Alan Ladd, a killer in more ways than one, pitting their male wits and strength against Little Miss Dynamite herself, Veronica Lake.
Get out of my way, you cheap crook.
The Glass Key, story of big-town politics and underworld intrigue, of murder cold-bloodedly plotted to swing an election, and a battle to the death between Alan Ladd and William Bendix, that terrific guy you saw as Maxie Randall in Wake Island.
I must confess, I've never heard of the film Wake Island. It was such a huge success they could make it in the trailer, but these things have slipped out of our conscious memory, I suspect. So what's your final recommendation then, Van, for us?
My final recommendation, this is going to be Sunday, 6:55 on ITV2. This is Coyote Ugly, which is the feature film that's based on a GQ article that's about the real-world New York bar/saloon that went on to become an international chain, a reality TV show, and seemingly the acceptable face of raunch table dancing. It's produced by kind of action producer legend Jerry Bruckheimer, who with Don Simpson gave us Top Gun as well. And it seemed really odd when he made this, because this was back in 2000. We didn't have IMDb back then, so we didn't readily know that they'd made Flashdance like 15 years earlier. And Flashdance is kind of the whole vibe of this movie, which is Piper Perabo as the sort of aspiring singer-songwriter who moves to the big city. It's a bit of a cliche, so moves to the big city to pursue her dreams, gets her sort of would-be McJob at Maria Bello's OTT rock-fueled bar, and, let that soundtrack commence. It's got a real it's sort of a feel-good movie, it's a sexy movie, it's a rocking movie, it's got a brilliantly broad appeal. Also, I did the Camden branch last week, and that was so much fun. So definitely go there after you see this on Sunday at 6:55 on ITV2. Definitely.
Oh, well, have you any idea? I mean, I've seen this film loads of times, mainly because my daughters, when they hit kind of adolescence, absolutely loved it. Where does the name Coyote Ugly come from? Because the girls are neither, coyotes, nor indeed ugly, one would suspect.
Well, there is no one ugly. No one ugly of the female persuasion exists within the universe of this movie. And the title, as far as I remember it from the movie itself, comes from the idea of when you wake up, next to some guy who's so ugly that you would rather gnaw your own arm off than wake him up. I think that's where it comes from.
Ah, okay. It's good to know that. I won't even ask about why Spearmint Rhino got its name as we ask you, when's this one? When can we see this on Sunday?
So Sunday night, 5 to 7, 6:55 on ITV2. Honestly, check this out. He's just a rocking good time.
You can't fight the moonlight. Here we go.
So basically you have
Jim, Jack, Johnny Red, Johnny Black, and Jose, all my favorite men. You can have it any way you like, as long as it's in a shot glass.
Okay, I'll take a beer.
$4.
I'm Kenny, the Russian tea. Violet, the Jersey Nut. That was Rachel, the New York bitch. We all play our little parts. Only Rachel really is a bitch. And I really am a tease.
Tabby, you can only be a tease if you stop sleeping around, babe.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that part.
Wow, great stuff there. Of course, you're going to smell the alcohol from the screens on that one. Now, tell us how we can hear your great off-screen podcast later on. I think it drops at 6. Is that right?
Well, we moved it to 8. It's myself and Adam Bull presenting. You can hear us on podcast platforms from 8 a.m. Just search Off Screen and enjoy, because this week we get to talk about Glass Onion, the sequel to Knives Out, which I'm a huge, huge fan of.
Looking forward to hearing Van's verdict on that, and Adams, of course. That drops at 8 a.m. this morning then. That's called Off Screen, and Van's with us each and every Friday on talkSPORT and talkRADIO, talking Freeview movies. Who doesn't love a bit of this?